Welcome to the FNO InsureTech podcast, a place where movers and shakers from all points within the insurance ecosystem gather and discuss all things InsureTech. Here are your hosts, Lee Boyd and Rob Beller.
Hey, podcast world, welcome to this week's entry into the long story of FNO InsureTech. Today, we just finished our interview today with what I'll say is one of the most dynamic, interesting folks that we've had on our podcast.
Exciting.
And that's saying a lot because we've had a ton of those people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 300 episodes, we've had a ton of fascinating, interesting, brilliant people. If you're into listening to those people talk, you want to listen to this one.
You want to listen to it. It is full of excitement, a founder story of building a company, staying within the vision and expanding. I mean, it's a great story today.
You know, being opportunistic while being disciplined.
Yeah.
Both. And the results are astounding. We have Terry McLean, the CEO and co-founder at SageSure, was kind enough to give us 45 minutes today to share with you some stuff that's going to blow your mind.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. It's a great interview. We start with a very exciting story that will actually just tell you what type of person Terry is. And then it'll lay the groundwork, the framework for the rest of the interview. So you think big, this guy thinks big. So I don't think, I'm excited. I'm excited to share this one.
He doesn't only think big, he does big things.
He goes big.
He goes big.
Yeah.
He doesn't just think big, he goes big. And listen to this and you'll see why. And then there's good news for those of you who find it to be a remarkable podcast and a remarkable guy. He'll be back too. So
he'll be back.
Little preview. We didn't even goof around.
No.
We always goof around. We didn't goof around today.
We don't need to goof around every time.
Sometimes you just need to be
like being
serious.
a nice guy. If a nice guy says something nice, do you take it serious? I don't know.
This is one of those times. So without further ado, we're not going to goof around.
No
without
goofing.
further ado or goofing around, here is our interview with Terry McLean, CEO, co-founder at SageSure. Hey, everybody. We are here with our guest, somebody who we've wanted to have on our podcast for a really long time. And I think we just wore them down to he's doing this so that we stop bothering his people. And we have Terry McLean, the co-founder and CEO at SageSure, who's coming to us today from California. Welcome to FNO InsureTech.
Welcome, Terry.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
We're excited.
It's great. We just learned that you live in California, and it's so refreshing to talk to somebody from California.
Yes, we moved out here. My wife is from here, moved out here from New York City in January 2020. I knew a global pandemic was coming, so I figured we'd get out of New York City in advance.
Yeah.
No, it's just very lucky timing. Our oldest was in second grade, and we didn't have family in New York City, so we decided it was time to get out of New York City. And I love running trails. I love riding my bike, and I now have a almost 6-year track record of riding my bike to the office every day. So I haven't
that's
broken a single day.
That's
That's
awesome.
fantastic.
That's great.
Rain or shine.
Rain
Fortunately,
or shine.
it's mostly shine, but
I was going to say, it's California, so it's great weather, but big winds and things, but good for you. Good for you.
When we're done today, I have to talk to you about biking. So
Happy
let's
to
not
do it.
forget that. Okay.
I won't.
And then on our biking podcast, we'll have you on that too.
That sounds good. I rode my bike across the country earlier this year, so I have
really?
a
Did you
number of
really?
stories about that one.
In it, did you carry your stuff in big bags?
No,
on your bike?
it was a group supported ride. We stayed in hotels along the way, nothing fancy, simple hotels, and they've got a trailer and they bring your stuff along each day. You meet them at the end and grab your stuff and check into your room. But I did have a van from SageSure follow me, so I'd go shower up, get in the van, start working I was able to put in 40 hours a week, except when my wife and kids came to visit. So yeah, they were driving along, and that was the only way to keep it going.
How long did that take? Was that
45-day ride, 2,900 miles. We had 5 days off and like 4, call it half-day rides. And so it was the average of those 36 other days was about 80 miles a day.
I was just thinking 80, 85. Didn't have my calculator. That's, as somebody who rides, not a whole lot anymore, but still, I mean, 85 is an outrageous amount on a single day, let alone day after day after day.
Back to back.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
What was it? I mean, what in the world got you to ride across the country? What were you?
Oh, I've always wanted to do it. My wife said, "You're not getting any younger. You just got to do it." I've got 4 kids, 12, 9, 8, and 4. And she's like, "You know what? You just got to go. You just have to do it." So she just signed me up and said, "This is when you're going."
Good for you.
Good for her. And share one reflection that you have from that ride.
The most interesting thing for me was that I did not have a moment of solitude riding the entire time. So there were 12 other, these are all males. It wasn't a male-only ride. It just turned out that there were no females. The organizer said there usually were females, but this one was just males. So there were 11 other males that made it across the country, and we rode together, at least with one other person the whole time. So
man,
people ask you, what are you thinking about during all that time? I'm like, not crashing into the guy in front of me is what I'm thinking about. You really don't get to think about a whole lot biking. When I'm running, it's a different story. I think running, you can really almost meditate and think about things.
You can.
But biking, you just got to focus on that wheel in front of you. And especially if you're going at it hard, you got to be super cautious and pay attention to traffic, pay attention to the guy in front of you. So it's pretty intense out there. You really don't get to relax. It's not a meditation type activity, that's for sure.
Man, that's great. Good for
you.
You
needed a vacation after the vacation.
Yeah, I don't think we would ever say that's a vacation. That's a
with the work in the riding. The riding was great. It was glorious, and I missed it when I was done right away.
Yeah.
But riding for what ends up being 4 to 5, depending on the day, depending on the hills, could even be 6 hours. And then you've got some breaks in there, and then you get done and you shower up and you're tired, and then go get in the van and start working. And you've got meetings scheduled in the afternoon, and then you go to dinner, and then you come back and you got more meetings scheduled. It became a little bit of a grind, but no complaints. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was an amazing experience.
Memory.
And my wife's asking when I'm doing the northern route. This was the southern route from San Diego to St. Augustine, Florida. And anyway, so there'll be a northern route at some point.
There's a guy that teaches my son golf lessons, and he told me he's 67, and he told me the other day that he holds a record for riding back and forth across Texas on a single speed bike. And I thought, that's awful. But I think he wants to do I think he's done a single speed across the country. I'm like, that's terrible. I don't want to do that.
Texas is interesting because the terrain we spent 17 days in Texas from El Paso.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. I mean, there's mountains and there's desert and hot. And, oh, gosh.
Interesting terrain.
Yeah. And hot.
Yeah.
We went through there. We went through El Paso so mid-March and got out of there at the end of March, early April. It really was, the temperature wasn't that bad.
Temperature's okay at that time.
It wasn't that bad. Wasn't that bad.
But I mean, you could have thunderstorms during that period of time.
Yes, you could. We were lucky. We had some rain, but no really bad weather.
Wow.
Fortunately.
What a remarkable, wonderful, exciting thing. Do you happen to know? So we're friends with a gentleman named Tony Triola, who's a real serious bike rider, and who went to Europe and rode. Lee, you would know what he rode.
Yeah, he did the Tour de France rail, right? He did the Swiss Alps and all that.
And
that's phenomenal.
Over like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, 9 days, maybe 10 days. Yeah, terrible
Just
route.
Spectacular, beautiful, and he kept sending me videos every day, and
it's horrible. No normal human does it.
It was
that's a gorgeous area. I have not. It's definitely on my list to bike over there. We hike over there quite a bit. We took my wife and I did Tour de Mont Blanc a few years ago. And then we took our kids on half of it this year. We're doing the other half next year.
That's wonderful.
Was
That's
that
fantastic.
was that on a bike?
No. Tour de Mont
hiking.
Blanc it's both a hike that a lot of people do, and they actually have an ultra. It's I think it's 106 or 108 mile ultra marathon starting in Chamonix, France, and goes around Italy, Switzerland, and then finishes in France. And so my wife and I did that together in 2022, I think it was. And then our kids our kids are old enough now. We're like, okay, let's get you into this. And so we did the first half, and they didn't complain too much. And we loved it so much that we signed up already for next year doing the other half.
Good. How exciting. Well, as I'm sure everybody can pick up by now, we could keep talking about this for the next 45 minutes.
We probably should talk about some insurance.
But I guess we kind of have to talk about insurance, which is a funny thing because, you know, in the day when I started in the industry, insurance was like boring. It was like boring and not interesting and kind of just day in, day out. But it's not like that anymore. And you, I would have to say, are one of the people kind of at the forefront of doing some wild stuff and making it work effectively and profitably with a company like SageSure. So why don't we start, even though we've had others on from SageSure, most notably Kat Reese, shout out to Kat. Let's have you tell us what SageSure is and what you do there.
Sure. SageSure, we refer to ourselves as a managing general underwriter. It's interesting that the perception or the statement is that we're doing interesting stuff. We think of ourselves pre the GeoVera acquisition as a pretty straightforward business. I mean, we started out in 2009. We really started in 2008 and got launched in 2009. And with the thesis that the market for coastal property, hurricane-exposed property, is going to be permanently dislocated because the major players, property aggregates. We know the property aggregates. You can't lift up houses and move them away. You can drive your cars away or you can protect your cars, but houses are prone to hurricane activity. Sure, we thought about earthquakes and wildfires and things like that, but really, this got the global peak in Florida, and you've got major hurricane exposure. So we thought this is a permanent fixture. I founded it originally with a partner named Andy DiLoretto. We had a software and services business, and we thought, hey, let's go build this MGU operation. And we were very cautious and very slow. It wasn't the gangbusters growth that you see from some companies today. It took us a long time. We wrote our first policy September 17th, 2009 in New York. We were working with Allstate and Geico as distributors. And over time, we built out some independent agency distribution, added states, ultimately found ourselves in 14 different states, writing business. And as of pre-GeoVera acquisition in 2024, grew it to about $2 billion organically.
Wow.
So it was mostly homeowners. It was almost, as of 2024, is almost entirely homeowners with a small commercial property business. And we're able to grow it successfully because at the core of it, we underwrote the business and made money for our carriers. And that's the simple truth. You got to do claims right. And you talked about Kat Reese, and she's the best. And we're lucky to have her. Doing claims right is a critical part of that, but underwriting the risks. Since we've founded, we've inspected millions of houses. We inspect them all. We don't inspect some of them. We don't strategically, and there are probably good reasons why we could not inspect some, but we've never strayed from the underwriting principles that as a distributor, our number one job is to underwrite on behalf of our carriers rather than just sell products, whatever they are. And so that's the founding story of SageSure. We set out and said, there are a lot of customers who deserve better rates in these coastal areas, but they don't have enough attention from players who are looking for the best customers. Those are customers. The most predictive indicator of frequency of loss for a homeowner is their insurance score. And that indicator, number two, is claims history. And those indicators are well known. They're well used by big carriers, but a lot of players in the coastal markets weren't getting the benefits of that. So we set out to Well, these customers are underserved in these markets. And so not because we won't sell insurance to somebody with a lower insurance score or somebody with claims history, but we offer what we believe is an appropriate price point, which often is lower than our competitors. So we have a disproportionate number of customers that we would refer to as preferred or ultra preferred customers. And so that was the foundation of it all. And we just kept doing what we were doing, going into more markets. We didn't lose our way and go inland and somehow run away from catastrophe exposure, which was very, very hard during 2020 through 2023 period. You know, today it's unrecognizable if you go back to what it felt like in 2022, where you weren't even sure you're gonna be able to get your reinsurance for your placement. So go through different market cycles and there are different challenges, but we stuck true and we really haven't changed that ethos from the very beginning of 2009. We underwrite everything we do and we make sure we make money for our carriers.
You know, you talk about the people on the coastal being underserved, and some would say, well, there's a reason for that, because these giant hurricanes come in, they cause damage, and they cost a lot of money. And so companies don't want to write there for that reason. I assume there was some naysayers or struggles that you went through when you said, I'd like to insure those properties. That's my focus. I'm curious.
On the riskiest.
Yeah, on the riskiest. I mean, what did those conversations sound like when you started talking to, fronting carriers or reinsurance or whatever, and they were like, that's where you want to focus?
Yeah, it's great. Like? Yeah, absolutely. Well, so there's a number of reasons, but the reason that runs through it all, which is, I forget what baseball player said, hit them where they ain't. It's the go to markets where the markets actually need you, and people are running away from these markets. Clearly there's a need. People still need insurance. They're going to buy insurance. So find the customers where you can charge a price that's competitive and still make money for your carriers. If you can solve that, that's the hard thing, right? In all of this, anybody can sell insurance, right? Can you sell insurance at a price that people want to buy and make money for your carriers, which is in most cases threading the needle. So in coastal markets, as much as it sounds, well, why would you do that? You're taking a lot of risk. The simple answer is because it's actually achievable to charge a price to a cross-section of customers who are already paying too much. They're paying too much because there's not availability. They're not companies falling all over themselves to offer product. They're running away mostly. And sure, there's a price point. You have traditional E&S players coming in and saying, I'll offer you a price, but they're not going after our customer base. They're going after the traditional E&S customer base. We're going after preferred customer base. So we're going in and saying, look, there's these customers that have great insurance score. They might be 5 miles from the water, 10 miles from the water, 50 miles from the water. Our average distance from the ocean is 10 miles. We are not a front road rider. We're not an ultra high net worth first,
So you're not riding the beach house.
Right. The beach house is, we'll do it in certain cases, but it's not really our game. Our game is to write the middle market customer, average $500,000 coverage A customer, and they've got a good credit score. They have a clean loss history, and they have a newer roof on their house, or they have a newer house. And those are the customers that are massively underserved. So go ahead.
Is that something that you intuitively knew? What happened? Did you discover some data that was like, oh my gosh, I can monetize this data? What brought this into your mind to even do?
Yeah, there's two parts of the answer. The simple answer is, I guess it was the thesis of the entire business, was there's these customers that are really good customers that are underserved in these markets because national carriers are running away from them and they're being overcharged. That was easy to see. And we had distribution people, really coming to us saying, I need these kind of products. I have good customers, and why are they being charged so much? So, there's a market opportunity. So the gentleman I joined, and he's my business partner to this day, I mentioned Andy. Andy and I started software and services business, and Andy's 15 years my senior. He really moved to retirement and was a board member for a bunch of years, but he retired in 2017. But I partnered with Brooks Clark. Brooks had run the Aetna product side for personal lines and really started homeowners predictive modeling for Aetna, which became Aetna Travelers, which we look at as the premier personal lines franchise in the business that we would look at and say, well, who's been around doing this right for a really long time? You look at Travelers and you're certainly going to put them up there on the homeowners and auto side and frankly on the commercial side and say, this is a great organization that you'd want to emulate and say, well, if I can do what they do and I can do things better. Brooks came from that organization. He came with the predictive modeling expertise combined with my expertise in more the reinsurance and catastrophe space in my dabbling as an actuary in my younger career days. We joined up forces in 2008 and said, well, we know that there's this massive opportunity. Distributors need product, and we know there's a lot of margin in this business. So if there's enough margin in the business, you go to the states. And throughout the journey, as we went from our first state in New York in 2009 to other states, the question was always, what's the market combined ratio for homeowners? And we never went into a state where we didn't understand that. And we rarely went into any state where that was near or over 100. There were exceptions like Alabama, Mississippi, where the market was horrible, but we knew the coastal areas were distressed and the coastal areas had the price that we needed, even if the inland areas didn't have that. So we looked at those environments and said, well, if the market is close to profitable, we can get paid our fees to justify existing and have margin left over for our carriers to make an adequate return on their capital to make it all work. And that was always the model. Yeah, so we've been pretty true to that. It's easy to lose your way. It's easy to grow too fast and say, I need to write more business because my private equity owner has a gun to my head and said, I need 20 plus ROEs. You got to grow faster. And we just stayed away from that. We originally started with investment from Jim Stannard, who was my, I think, boss's boss when I worked at Renaissance Re. I had joined forces with a gentleman named Rod Fox, who was a reinsurance broker side. They formed the partnership and invested in us as their first investment before they started the broker Tiger Risk back in 2008. They invested us in December of 2007 as we were launching this MGU franchise. They sold out in early 2016. IAT Insurance Group bought their stake from them. I'm still close with Jim and Rod from those days and worked with them in various capacities. But that was the whole idea from the very beginning was, let's not be addicted and grow for the sake of growth. Let's control our own destiny, patient with growth, focus on underwriting profit, and the capital will come. So the world's a very different place today than it was call it 16 years ago. But we really haven't changed a lot. Clearly, the acquisitions have changed things. But
I am interested. Yeah, I'm interested to learn more. It sounds like your original growth path was organic growth, but you've made two that I know of, two acquisition announcements, one Giavera and then one Olympus right out of Florida. Can you tell us a little bit about the mindset change or how the acquisitions came about and the thoughts surrounding that?
Yeah. So I was always pretty skeptical on acquisitions because, number one, I didn't want to be beholden to raise capital from private equity or somebody that's going to want to control our destiny. So I wanted to make sure the control side of SageSure was always management control, so we don't have to be beholden to others. So one thing that changed as we got larger and started generating significant earnings at SageSure is we originally did a bank facility, then we did another bank facility, a syndicated bank facility, and ultimately partnered up with Ares, which is now, I believe, a $600 billion private equity, primarily credit lender that lends us about $1 billion and has supported us with debt. We're able to access capital to kind of have our cake and eat it too. We're not over leveraged. We're under 3 times leverage. So we're not levering up 5, 6, 7 times like a lot of players are. We like to keep it closer to 2, 2.5, pretty conservative leverage. For an acquisition, we can kind of lever it up. We use that to buy back stock. And we use that from employees in certain cases to do some distribution in some cases, but primarily for acquisition. So one thing that changed is access to capital without giving up control. So Ares enabled that and has been an absolutely great partner in doing that. Hard to get in the club. Once you're in the club, they're the best. And then the other thing is strategically, we have a way of doing business. We think of ourselves as extremely disciplined underwriters as a business, and proud that the last 3 years in a row, Insurance Insider recognized SageSure as property catastrophe underwriter of the year.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah, and for that is our ethos. We don't believe you should be doing this business as a managing general underwriter if your focus isn't underwriting and making money for your carriers. So we frankly were skeptical that there are a lot of organizations out there as MGU or MGA operations that we could acquire that would fit that ethos. Mm-hmm. Not saying, oh, we're better than everybody, not that mindset, but rather hard to find. Are you going to find the right fit? And I don't really want to pay market multiples. I mean, companies like ours trade at 18, 19. You start looking at some of the recent things that, well, like what Neptune did, and maybe that has a 2 handle on it beginning now. So really big multiples. I'd rather grow it organically the way we like to do it. And we've had enough growth organically to do that. So that was the mindset. And then we did, as time went on and we grew, IET, I said earlier, made that investment in 2016. They're like, hey, you guys have grown value a lot. Could we take some chips off the table? We're like, sure, okay, we can enable that. And so we got an investment from Amwins and FlexPoint Ford just to beef up equity. It was a very, very hard market. We were growing, and we took a minority investment without any control provision so we could keep doing what we were doing, and just loved the Amwins guys and found a relationship with FlexPoint Ford. We thought we could get a lot of value. I don't say that lightly, but FlexPoint has been, and I can say today, they've been a great partner and investor, but they had an investment in GeoVera. And before they even invested, we talked about, hey, could we do something with this? They had it in a fund that was a 2008 fund. They'd had it for a long time. They had done very well for their investors, and they needed to exit. And I said, I just kind of just making things up on the fly. I was like, what about a carrier bifurcation? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I think they kind of dismissed it and, let us invest in you and shut up, and, we'll figure out how to sell this. But ultimately, I think it was one of those days where you wake up and like, oh, it's in my head. And I just went to scribble it down. I think 7 slides came out, and then I had it put together and I sent it over to them. And I said, it would look something like this. What do you think? And they're like, oh, you could do that? And I was like, yeah, we could do that. So not something that people can usually pull off very easily, but the ability to bifurcate the carrier, keep true to the SageSure model, and borrow money to invest in the balance sheet side was something that was very appealing. And the other thing that happened with GeoVera that was kind of crazy or coincidental, I guess, is we had worked with IET to spin out a carrier called SafePort. And it was essentially a monoline homeowners writer. And maybe justifiably, AM Best not a big fan of monoline homeowners writers and having an A rating. So it was kind of sitting there without a full-blown management team. It was being overseen, but not with career professionals who are working 40 hours a week. Or like, this thing needs a good home with a good leadership team, which became part of the opportunity with GeoVera was, oh, wow, we could do this carrier bifurcation, and SafePort can roll under GeoVera, get stacked and pooled under the GeoVera group, have a professional management team in John Forney and the leadership and the turnaround he did there. And it just came together perfectly. It was kind of, wow. It was just seemed like at the time, a deal of a lifetime that never would get beat. And it's been great.
It seemed very, very complicated. Like, it wasn't just we acquired the company, we started doing it. You're moving, you're shaking, you're doing all sorts of things with it.
I can't tell you, we don't have enough time to tell you how complicated it has been. It is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
they had 125 people, over 100 of them came and became SageSure employees. We have a multi-year roadmap of migrating all the platforms into SageSure's platform. It's a big thing. It's complicated. SafePort had to move from its current and have people transition into Giovera, but John's been great. We love the management team that's been there, and John's been steadfast and a great business partner in it. So he's running the carrier operations side, and we've been doing the MGU side. And the performance for Giovera this year has been great. They continue to write the quake business and grow the quake business in California, Washington, and Oregon. They've got other programs outside of SageSure. And then they've got some Florida business that we picked up, as well as some Florida residential and some Florida commercial habitational business that we picked up that we've rolled into SageSure and manage as part of SageSure now. So it's been a cool journey on Giovera's side. Yeah. And happy to talk about that more. And I'll just say, during my bike ride, Olympus came up.
Okay.
Banker from the sell side came to me. I had already rejected the deal. I was very no way am I touching a Florida admitted company. Just that doesn't make any business sense. We've been steadfast players, non-admitted in Florida, non-admitted in California, admitted in all of our other states, but those regulatory environments just aren't compatible with the way we think about how businesses need to be run and generating adequate profits for our carriers and for ourselves with the price flexibility. And frankly, all the other markets have been great, but California, Florida just didn't work for us. Yeah. And the banker came back to me during my bike ride and said, Terry, we really need to talk. And
he's like, don't bother me, I'm riding my bike.
So I got together and they mentioned the situation, and I was like, oh, wow, these guys are really doing something different. If I was ever going to do something in Florida, that would be it. And ultimately, we were able to come to terms that are, in a financial world, without getting overly specific, are jaw-dropping.
I would have to ask, it seems like maybe you have the acquisition bug, right? There's two of them. There's two of them. Do we stop there, or is there a future where there's more of these things that'll happen?
It's hard to predict. I can tell you definitively I have nothing in the hopper right now.
Okay.
I don't want to say never. If you can find opportunities like Olympus, like Giovera, for similar reasons where there's a great strategic fit, where you think they're really doing things differently. Yeah. I really think Olympus is doing things differently than we could have done. And there's a lot we can learn from what Tim and the team have done there in creating that business. And there's a lot of financial benefits on the Giovera side. They're in earthquake. The pathway to us getting an earthquake was not great. We were able to have Nesrin from Giovera join us, and she's just amazing.
Yeah.
I got to ask you about earthquake.
Yeah.
We're both in California, and I'm sure you'll agree, it's kind of surprising how little conversation there is in California about earthquake, considering the significance, the potential significance of an earthquake. Some of us have been here. I was here during Northridge, or in California during Northridge. And I still don't forget. Of course, I was in the insurance business, so it makes it easier to remember. But is earthquake like coastal? Or how did you wrap your head around getting into that line of business? Or is it you just look at the numbers on it and it makes enough sense?
Earthquake is similar in some ways, but very different in others. So it's similar in the peak zone catastrophe risk. So peak zone catastrophe risk means that you've got enough risk aggregating that people don't want to write it beyond a certain amount because you could cause it insolvency. Sure. With some reasonable probability. So, we certainly wouldn't want to write a 10% market share of earthquake in California. That would not be within the confines of a reinsurable risk. So it's similar in peak zone. it's peakier than hurricane. It's, if you have a big California earthquake, it's going to be hundreds of billions of dollars. Right. So you've got to be very disciplined and thoughtful around the line of business, and you can diversify it. So GeoVera buys billions of dollars of earthquake reinsurance. A lot of it is done through catastrophe bonds, and a good amount is done through traditional reinsurance. And that earthquake reinsurance is purchased in part in conjunction with hurricane reinsurance. So you might have call it a 1 in 100 year earthquake, something bigger than Northridge, something bigger than the Bay Area earthquake. But the likelihood of that happening and you having multiple major hurricanes in the same year is infinitesimally low. So you might have a 100 year hurricane, but you're not very likely, more like a 1 in 10,000 year, to have a 100-year hurricane and a 100-year earthquake. And remember, these companies are buying multi-event coverage. So it's not like you can only afford to have one major disaster. The rating agency standards, no matter who your rating agency is, require you to buy multiple events up to at least something like a 50-year return period, which gets you sideways to multi-thousand of year return period. So the amount of reinsurance purchased is a consideration, and there's risk involved. The whole business involves risk, and you just got to get your heads around your view of risk and understand that there isn't zero probability of these things happening. They're just remote enough that you can contain them
and get comfortable.
Everybody's buying, other than maybe Berkshire Hathaway, not really buying reinsurance. State Farm buys billions of dollars of reinsurance. Allstate buys billions of dollars of reinsurance. All of these companies have some level, USA buys billions of dollars of reinsurance. They have some level of exposure to catastrophes and are managing that risk to a comfort level. Generally, that comfort level is in the range of 40 to 70 basis points of vertical probability, according to whatever models they happen to be modeling with.
I want to ask a little bit about technology, right? You're coming into this cat environment, and over the years, technology has grown and grown. As an InsureTech podcast, what impact has technology had on your company? And is there a future where technology is playing a bigger part with the advancements that are going on? So tell us a little bit about how technology is impacting your company.
We could talk for hours just about this topic by itself, for sure.
It's a big one. It's a big one.
In a big way. So, I guess I think of it as the basic blocking and tackling. Acquiring business, we have held since the beginning and still hold a mindset that we will distribute through licensed insurance producers. So that's been our model. We've never really thought that seriously about direct to consumer. Not only does it theoretically create channel conflict with your existing producers, it's a completely different model of acquiring customers. So we rely on our distributors of all different types, from big national companies and partnerships like Goosehead and partnerships with Allstate to our mom and pop independent agencies, as well as digital distributors of certain types that we think bring us preferred customers. I say all of that in a technology question because the most important thing we do with technology today is build what we refer to as the market-leading buying experience with our producers. We create an experience for them that enables them to win with their customers. Now, you got to have competitive products or that's a waste of your breath. You've got to have straight-through processing in most of the cases so they can bind risks. When you're dealing with risks that are a few $1,000s, you can't have a lot of disruption in there. Otherwise, your producers can't make money. So the number one part of our business, and at this point, we've invested at least $50 million. I don't know, maybe it approaches $100 million. I can go back and get the number. It's a meaningful amount of proprietary technology that we have built to be the market-leading buying experience for our producers. And this is something that we ask them in unaided surveys and very specific interviews and looking at it from every angle. And of course, not everybody says we're the best. Many say we're the best. Something in the range of 75% of our producers say we are one of the top 3 solutions they have on their desktop. And somewhere approximating half think of us as the best. And so we plowed immense dollars in making that experience work for them. It's not cheap. It's a massive commitment. And that has over time evolved to not just being the best experience for the producer in a browser where they're interacting with us. It has evolved to the developer experience for the partners who are building systems for themselves who want to interact via API so that they can get quotes on their system the way they want to work. In some cases, bridging over to ours to close, in many cases, so they can close and bind on their system. So that has evolved over time that you've got to have the best developer experience. If you want to be first in line and say, I know you're moving to this new solution, I want you to do this with us first. I jump out of my chair anytime that conversation comes up is, we want to be first. We want to be first. We want to be first.
You're not going to try to be first.
We're not going to try to be first. That's right. And
You're
so we have
be
a
first.
team of people whose only job is integrating our solution with other development arms of distributors to get our solution into their shop faster and better. And of course, we're offering not just one product, but many products. And so oftentimes that's a unique thing because they're integrating with, maybe they're integrating with a Travelers or a large or a Progressive American Strategics arm. And they're a big, okay, we'll offer you a product. Our mindset is we're bringing a suite of products and we want to be first in line of that suite of products in your office. So
they know to check with SageSure because chances are it's going to be listed there as one of my options that I need for this particular client that I'm
and
selling.
research tells us that our producers, on average, 75% of the time, quote 2 to 3 carriers.
Okay.
In some cases, that could be, quote, SageSure, because SageSure has 2 to 3 carriers, and 75%, it's about 70% of the time, they present to the consumer 1 to 2 actual quotes to be bindable. And so that conventional wisdom is you got to be on their radar. If you're not in the front of the line or near the front of the line, you lose out. You miss a lot of opportunities.
So your technology is kind of an acquisition cost, customer acquisition.
Certainly. Absolutely. Yeah. And so we have always held the view that even if you could use something off the shelf as your back end, your front end acquisition, if it's not bespoke, you really can't win because you just can't move fast enough. And so if you want, talk about technology, just to geek out a little bit, we are full CI/CD. Everything, of course, is running cloud-based, which isn't really novel at this point. Most people are cloud native on everything, and we have been since 2014. But we are full CI/CD across everything we do. So, I'm assuming most of your audience knows what that means, but if they don't, continuous integration, continuous deploy. So we are deploying across all of our platform hundreds of times a day.
Man, that's fantastic. I mean, it really feels like you're embracing, you're in all this conversation, you're staying true to your founding, to the values. And it's a very unique thing. And before the podcast, as we get close to wrap up here, we talked about another unique thing. It was actually an off-the-cuff comment that we went into, but you talked about at SageSure, there are behaviors we value. And I want to talk a little bit about your leadership style. And if you would just let our audience know, a lot of audiences, a lot of companies have values. They have a value statement. But you say we have behaviors we value. Can you tell us what that is and kind of how that drives the company?
Yeah. So the phrase behaviors that we value dates back to, I think it was 2016 or 2017. We were going through this work to quantifying this. We've been around for a pretty good amount of time and had hundreds of millions of premium. And I think we knew in the people that had been around, the probably 50 people that had been around during the whole time, we got a bunch of them around and said, how do we represent how we think about our culture? And there's other aspects we talked about. What's our big, hairy, audacious goal. How do we think about who we are and what we want the business to look like? And of course, then you get into, okay, then what are your values? And that phrase comes up and it's kind of like, okay, integrity, honesty, those are critical things. I refer to those as table stakes values. You don't have those, you got to go. If you don't operate with integrity, you don't operate with honesty, and say, but what is it that we have that is different? And how do we think about that? And we went through an exercise and we wrote a bunch of stuff down. And ultimately we said, this isn't about values, because values are important, but it's actually about the behaviors that the way people behave that we value as an organization, instead of calling them values. And it's, values are usually the term that people use, but we wanted them to be unique. We didn't want anybody else to have the behaviors that we value. We say the same words. And so it became important to make them ownable and make them differentiated and make them something that we could talk about, that whether we talk about it in a forum like this or we talk about it, there's not a week that I'm in the office or in meetings that somebody doesn't talk about at least one of these three behaviors that we value. We are fountains is one of them, which is a reference to a story written by a friend of mine, Don Bailey, who I guess the press just came out about him, but he's been a friend for a long time. And he wrote this story about a person who's positive and builds people up and versus the person who's a draining person. So we borrowed from his writing about that. We are fountains. The second one, I will own this one myself. We run down the hall. It's a reference to, you have urgency. I think it has a lot to do with empathy. You run down the hall because a producer needs something, policyholder needs something, a coworker needs something. You have empathy for if the fact that you might be taking your time might impact them, might slow them down from doing the important stuff that they do. So that urgency, that empathy, that caring for others is part of that. And then the last, we don't try, do or do not, there is no try, Yoda reference. Had fun with that one. And we say, we value people who don't try. Don't start with your caveats about what you might do. Tell us what you're going to do. And so that one's the fun one, is people always catch themselves now.
I imagine.
Say, I'm not going to try. I'm sorry. I meant I'm going to do that.
I'm going to. I'm not going to try to do it. I'm going to do it. I might fail, but I'm going to do it.
That's right. And so I think those three work really well together at providing a unique environment where people lift each other up and build each other up, but expect a lot from each other and hold each other accountable to doing things that they say they're going to do and not trying.
We've run up against the clock, but I have to ask one question before you go. I'm sure it's a question that's on everybody's mind, and that is SageSure. There's got to be a story there. Of all the insurance company names I've come across, perhaps one of the most unique.
Yeah, well, we want it to be unique, that's for sure. There was a moment where I thought it was going to be Sage Point. And SageSure is a little bit harder to say, maybe a lot harder to say. You get used to it. But the Sage for us felt very ownable, and the word means, I think, wise or knowledgeable.
Like
sage, and so we felt like we thought that really represented ethos. We started as coastal risk underwriters in 2009, and 3-4 years in realized that just isn't going to fly as a brand to consumers that they could get their heads around. And so we didn't want to be an underwriter in the name, and we wanted something unique. We thought it was going to be Sage Point, which I still kind of like, but it turned out that I think it was AIG had some copyright on the name and we had to abandon it. And we wanted something, in today's day and age, some people do, different URLs, but we wanted a .com and we wanted something unique. And so you have limited options, and I'm sure people are more creative than we were, but the Sage, the Sure, obviously a reference to insurance, the security of it. We wanted something secure. There are others out there that have these cute names. I don't get it in insurance. That works for some things. It doesn't really work for me. And we weren't going to go that direction.
Yeah.
So SageSure, how we landed, there might have been better choices, but we couldn't come up with one.
Well, you'd be surprised how many people we've interviewed who've told us that whatever the name of their organization was came from, they wanted to be able to make it
URL.
a simple URL, right?
It's a huge driver.
Like
You got to
one
have,
that comes
it's
to
got to be
mind-
available.
One that comes to mind, speaking of underwriters, is Hippo, right? And I don't know if you ever met the founder of Hippo, kind of a crazy guy, but he wanted a name that could be that.com, and Hippo was available. There you go.
There you go.
So he went.
So, listen, what a pleasure. I mean, we have like 1,000 questions, and I think we got to 3 of them. So,
I would love to do more, but yeah, we're hitting the clock.
so we did. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
We did. We didn't try.
There was no
Yeah.
trying here.
And
We did.
what a real pleasure to have you and to hear about your company and yourself. And there's so much ground that we didn't even cover. We're going to have you back. I'm sorry.
I would love to come back, and it was a lot of fun. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Sometimes we have an interview and you say, that was good. And sometimes you have an interview and we say, wow.
Sometimes you just, whenever the guest leaves, you just stare at each other and go, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is one of those days, isn't it?
Well, and what happened was, as soon as we ended the interview, we got into the subjects that we probably should have talked about the
Right.
whole way, the even more fascinating information. So I'm happy to announce to the audience that Terry's coming back on. So he'll be back on in the future.
We've already planned out what sounds like could be like 8 more podcast episodes.
Yeah, it'll be an 8-part series, and it'll be the truth behind insurance, what
You wanna
goes on behind
learn?
the scenes.
You want to learn? You want to know some stuff? Yeah. When you get the notice that we have him on, make sure you listen.
Make sure you listen.
That simple.
Yeah.
Big thanks
thank
to
you.
Terry McLean at SageSure. Big thanks to the people at SageSure for helping to make this happen, and to all you for listening to it. I hope you found it as enjoyable to listen to as it was for us to cook up in our little podcast kitchen that we have.
Yeah, I like that. First time we've said that in 300 times.
So, until the next time.
Goodbye, everybody.